Yes, lads, what is going on? And welcome to Season 2, Episode 32 of the Little Running Irishman podcast. In this episode, we have Liam Naughton from More Than a Runner podcast. Just before we get in talking about Liam and all his achievements and what we go through in this episode, I just really want to quickly say there's about 2 times, I'm pretty sure, in this episode where it kind of goes quiet for like a second or two. That's just due to internet issues, and that's all it is. The reason I'm telling you now and not editing it out is because I actually can't find it in the time lapse that I have for this episode, so I actually can't find it. There was one big one where we actually disconnected from the call that I edit that out completely, but I think there's like 2 little ones in there where it kind of goes quiet for a second, and then we come back and start talking again. That's just due to internet issues, but other than that, Liam has one of, if not the biggest running Irish podcast in Ireland, so it was an absolute honour to have him on to get a few tips, not only from a running point of view, because he was a pretty decent runner back in his day, if I do say so myself. You'll find a little bit more about his running career in this episode of the podcast, but also to do with the podcast, as I said, he's a really, really big podcast in terms of Irish running, and as I said, it was a privilege to have Liam on. We have a great conversation about pretty much everything when it comes to Gaelic, hurling, running. We talk about podcasts, and I also ask him 2 or 3 questions that were submitted into the poll that I put up over on Instagram a few days ago about if anyone had questions that they wanted me to ask Liam, and I picked out 3 of the best ones I thought anyway, so these are the ones that I will be going for. Real quick before we jump into this episode, this episode contains a giveaway. So we're giving away this Kenyan running bracelets from Artisan Running Bracelets over on Instagram. And how to enter is, so the thumbnail for this episode and the YouTube thumbnail will be going live over on Instagram. So by the time you see this, it will already be live. I don't know what the thumbnail will be because obviously I haven't created it yet. By the time you watch this or listen to it, whether it's on YouTube or Patreon, the thumbnail will already be live. So what you have to do, you have to go over there, you have to tag 2 friends, and you have to comment done, and then you will be. It's not that you'll be entered into the giveaway. The first person to do it will win the giveaway. So that's why I was emphasizing so much to get in with the Patreon before this episode went out, because people that have signed up to the Patreon that actually watch or listen to this episode of the podcast, I'm not sure what I'm going to do on Patreon yet, post as a video or an audio file or both, but anyone that watched or listened to this episode on Patreon and entered the podcast would have had the highest chance of winning. So, as I said, if you're watching this or listening to this after the giveaway, the links to the Patreon are down in the description. I've already got an exclusive video out there talking about the 2020 Valencia marathon, half marathon. I commentate over it. I'll watch it for the first time. So that's exclusive to Patreon as of right now. I also have Sunday's episode of the podcast up there, and obviously this episode will be live over there with this giveaway in it. So make sure to enter that. Go over and check the post. You never know, there mightn't be a winner yet. So do that over the Little Running Irishman official Instagram. But for further exclusive episodes of the podcast, exclusive videos, and exclusive giveaways, or increasing your chance to win a giveaway, as I said, links down in the description or in the show notes to join the Patreon. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. Thanks once again, Liam, for taking the time out to come on the podcast. It was a really, really great episode, and I can't wait for you guys to listen to it. So once again, I hope you enjoy. Alright everybody, so I'm here with Liam Naughton from the More Than a Runner podcast. Thanks very much, Liam, for coming on. Real quick, if you want to just give a little bit of a story or a bit of background about yourself.
Yeah, so I got into athletics when I was in 5th year, so that was 2014. So I played hurling up until then. I don't know if anyone's watching the GA Championship this year. Tony Kelly lives about a mile down the road from me. He's the best hurler in the country. So big hurling community. Hated running. We used to do warm-ups for GA training. I used to do the lap warm-up. I used to be dead last. Could not stand it. Never made it to community games. and then for some reason got into fitness in TY, and was in the same class as Kevin Mulcair, who some of you may know, some of you may not, but he was a very good runner, and so got involved in the club then, and then had a very successful team, won a few All-Irelands, had a great rivalry with Clonlift there, then I went to college in DCU, switched, and yeah, that's pretty much me. Started the podcast then this year, and it's been going well, so that's pretty much me.
You're very modest, to be fair. You've had some big achievements there, so I suppose now we'll just dive a little bit more detail into it. But now, I'd say these questions will do you a bit more justice. So, taking it back to when you were playing hurling, and you were saying there that, like, you know, you hated running. So, what actually drove you? And I know you said you wanted to build fitness, but you know the intensity between a warm up and actually doing athletics for a team is a lot different. So when you started running for a team, what made you stay there?
Well, like when I actually started running with an actual club.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know how I stuck at it, because I left hurling because I wasn't getting played, even though I was fit enough to play.
Yeah.
And I was either going to join CrossFit or running. And Kevin Mulcair, as I said, was in my class, and I kind of said to him, I said, I'd love to join the older crew, like an adult crew, and run 2 days a week just to keep fit.
Yeah.
I don't want to do anything serious. And before I knew it, I was in this group where I was training 6 days a week, and I'd never done anything harder in my life. And I was like, I remember after a few weeks, I was like, I cannot do this. I'm just going to pack this in. But I don't know why I stuck at it. I think I think I came into that group with a bit of a chip on my shoulder. I was like basically starting from scratch, and I kind of wanted to prove to people that, you know, I can come into this and give this a go. And then, yeah, we just had a great squad, and like it was good crack, and we had a great group there in Flannans, and then when you're winning stuff, I mean, I was part of a really, really good team. We won All Ireland clubs. We beat Clonlift, and then they beat us the following week in All Ireland schools. And so we're second in schools twice. So I was going from not being able to start my hurling team and winning All Irelands with an athletics team. So
Yeah.
when you're winning, it makes it easy, you know.
Yeah, 100%. And from obviously your running career success wise, you weren't shy of a bit of success. So coming from that, you know, being when you got into running, being a pretty solid long distance runner, do you kind of regret not actually picking it up earlier?
Yes and no. Like, I mean, if you pick it up earlier, then you don't know what's going to happen. You know,
Yeah.
I could have just left it then, or maybe I don't know, burnt out or something, or you know, I think I picked up at a good time where I was going to it because I actually enjoyed it. I think a lot of people take up running because there's naturally talented at it, and I think you can. I don't know, if you don't have that proper drive and motivation, well, you're not going to stick at it. You know, you can't be talented at something and not enjoy it, and then so I think. Yeah, I think it took me to find the drive first, and then you know, no matter how good or bad I was going to be, I was going to keep doing it because I actually enjoyed it, and I still do. So.
No, definitely. Would you say, obviously you said you wanted to be fit as well, but you also mentioned there that you weren't really starting for the hurling team. So did that play into a bit of a factor of trying to look into a different sport to start, or was it just primarily you wanted to get fit?
Yeah, I think I was in TY, and all my buddies were going to the gym. That was the thing at the time. They're all going to the gym across the road, and I might do that as well for the bit of crack after school, and obviously loads of time being in TY. And then actually one of the older lads in the hurling club worked in the gym, and he did up a plan for me, and I just stuck at it. And most lads are going to the gym just to look at themselves and talk to each other, but
Yeah.
I actually stuck to the plan. I actually did it, and I actually loved training, and I
Yeah.
loved getting fit, and I like the independence of it. Like obviously in the GA club, it's very regimented, and you have to be at training at a certain time. Whereas, you know, doing gym or running as well, it's very more independent. You kind of set your training week as you want, and yeah, so I just enjoyed that aspect of it really.
Yeah, definitely. And it kind of, you know, from a personal point of view, I haven't done much to any gym work at all. Do you think doing that bit of gym work actually helped with your running?
Well, like I wasn't really lifting weights. I suppose I was lifting some weights, but like I was overweight for my age, so I was just shifting weight more than anything. So I
Yeah.
was like on the elliptical machine, on the treadmill or whatever, and you know, I might do a local 5K or 10K or something. I'd run the roads at home. So yeah, I don't think it benefited me too much, like in form wise or strength wise. I think it just got me into aerobic training maybe more than anything.
Yeah. That's fair enough. And obviously, you were mentioning there that you were second in skills one year, and you were best in the country in another year and whatnot. But personally, what was initially when you started running? What was like personal success for yourself?
Um, oh God, just the improvement. I mean, when you first join a sport, when you first join running, you're just going up. You're going straight up. Every day is a new PB, and so yeah, I just got addicted to that really, and like just the buzz of racing. Then like I think the first cross country course I nearly turned away home. I just was petrified, and then ended up running it and got a great buzz off that, and that's where kept at it then, and then I think Munsters the following March I was seventh, and then I think 2 weeks after that we won the All Ireland Juniors, and I was a scoring member, and then we were second in schools. So like within 6 months, like I was doing that, so it was just a really good buzz. And I mean, then the following year it kind of hit, because then you obviously plateau and you're not running a PB every day, and then you get the opposite effects where you're kind of beating yourself up, and then I had my fair share of time beating myself up about results then as well, which is never a good thing.
Yeah, no, definitely. But I have to agree with you there. The feeling of even finishing a race, it feels like a weight lifted off your shoulder. But some of the achievements that you're mentioning there, like I must have felt, it's a bit like a drug, and I must have felt really addicting, and that's why you stuck around. And no, that's obviously a lot of people's reasons to why they do. Because on the starting line, when you're really nervous and you're really cold and you're kind of like, Jesus, why am I doing this? But then the feeling after, it's nothing like it. So yeah, that's always amazing. And out of, I know this might be hard to say, but out of all the running achievements that you've encountered, what would you say might be your favorite one, or your most memorable one?
100%. This like I think this week last year we ran the novice All Irelands, and we finished second, so we didn't win. We lost by countback, which is
Oh yeah,
a cruel way to lose a
yeah.
race. But it was funny the way it worked out. So we were in Portugal on training camp last, so I think April 2019, and there was four of us, and we've been good friends for a few years. And we said, why don't we run the novice for the crack as a team? And we kind of laughed and joked about it and said, oh yeah, we will. And this is months away, so we said, oh, we'll come back to it or whatever. And we kind of got this, like every time training them, like, oh, we're training for novice, training for novice. That I went to Canada for the summer, just working and having a good time, and came back like 2 stone overweight. And the lads are like, what have you done? Like the novice gone out the window. And I said, lads, don't worry, I'll be fit. I'll be fit. So we trained away for a few months anyway, and we just built a really good team culture. I think it's something, I don't know if there's a formula to it. It's really hard to do, but it's lightning in a bottle when you get it. Being part of a really good team where you're all really good friends. And I remember the day of the race, we were saying, no matter what happens, like this has been such good crack leading up to this. Like we trained hard, but we had a lot of good crack. And no matter what happens, win or lose, come 10th, come first, this has been great fun. And we came second. Donald won the race. I was eighth, which was a huge achievement for myself individually. But
Yeah.
coming away from the race, like it was kind of disappointing losing a countback. We obviously wanted to win, but I didn't really care, because we built such a good team that it didn't really matter if we won or not. And
Yeah.
so for that reason, that's definitely highlight number one.
Yeah, 100%. I have to agree with you there. Like having the team and the social aspect to it is what keeps you. What personally, anyway, it's a really big factor. What keeps me going up every night, because with the training being really hard, if you were kind of just doing that on your own and going through that on your own and going through the pain, it'd be a lot harder than knowing the people around you that you can actually talk to are going through the same pain, and even enjoyment as well. So that's really good. And I know a lot of people around my age listen to the podcast. So just for a bit of perspective, someone when you were about my age was winning big titles and placing high in races. What was training looking like for you back then? Was it high mileage? Was it low mileage? What was training like?
God, winning the All Ireland clubs, that's 5 years ago now. So we train at Flannan's, which is the school, St. Flannan's College.
Yeah.
There's pitches out the back, and it's a mile loop on grass, and everyone runs barefoot pretty much.
Yeah.
So it's very low impact on the body. So we do quite a good mile. It's kind of like strength work, I suppose, would be our main philosophy. Just being strong, doing long, hard runs. And then something I've learned a lot in recent years is actually recovering and running slow. And that takes more confidence to running fast, because we can all run runs at a certain pace, but it actually takes a bit of confidence to pull back and say, I need to recover today. So yeah, training, it's pretty basic. There was nothing special to it again, but it was just having a good group.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, they always say, like, a good group, you should have someone better than you, someone slower than you, and someone around your own level. Because you're always striving to get to the next group, and you're always someone which you've kind of grinding on, which is we always had loads of good lads around to train with. And then, like, as I said, we Kevin Mulcair there as well, and Mulcair was like at the time he was the best runner in the country. He was unbeatable, and to see him train, it was kind of like you left no stone unturned, because first of all, he wouldn't let you, but he was just a good role model in training wise. He trained hard, and that was the way it was, and he set the tone for everyone else.
Yeah, definitely, and I'd have to agree with you there again. It's always good to have, I find the people at a young age that are the best and are winning every race and have no one challenging them in training might be the ones to then drop off in the future because they've nothing to chase for. So it's always good to have someone that much better than you, especially in training, to push you that little bit harder. But off air, we were talking about you went to DCU and then you ended up in the University of Limerick. So do you want to just kind of talk us through that process? So what made you go to DCU in the first place, and if you did, what was the running experience like?
So yeah, I kind of always wanted to go to Dublin. I kind of wanted to just get away and live somewhere else, and I just like Dublin. I've a few family members there, and I gone up and I knew a few people that were in DCU or had gone to DCU. And I just kind of saw running as a way to get me to Dublin, because DCU had the running set up, and they had the house there with all the athletes. Like, Dublin's not an easy place to get accommodation, so I said, running is like an inn to get me a nice place to live for however long I was going to be there.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I got the points, got the course, went up, and the running just didn't work out. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was just immaturity at the time, or I don't know. But anyway, I think I was in a bubble. I mean, you're probably experienced this as well now. You're in school and you have that kind of bubble, like you finish school and you go and train and you have that same routine. And then when you're landed in like college environment and you have to kind of set your own routine and figure it out for yourself, it's a bit daunting. Like, and I think I just struggled with that for a while. And yeah, just running races then and like just beating myself up, and like it was tough. Like, and I just packed it in for a finish and just said I'd move back home and switch to UL. And but like, I probably resented the sport and I kind of wanted to walk away from the sport, but I never did. Like, I just kind of just stuck around.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my TCU experience. wasn't very long, and but like I liked it. Like, I think if I like, obviously you learn more as you grow, but like I think if I could go back to first year in DCU now, I would have managed it a lot better, and I think I would have stayed the course of the course I was doing. But I wouldn't be here though if I did that, So
yeah,
that's the way it goes.
Yeah, definitely. And from moving to DCU to UL, was that completely running based, or was it slightly academic based as well?
Yeah, I suppose I was just switching to a general business course, and I mean, I could have done it in DCU, and I actually did apply to go back to DCU, but I just, the costs that were involved in like repeating a year in Dublin, it was just too much. I just didn't want to have that burden, so it just made more sense to go back to UL, where he was closer to home and things like that. So it just made more sense that way. So that was the thinking behind that. But like, I would have liked to stay in Dublin, but it just didn't make sense at the time.
Yeah, definitely. And when you arrived back in UL or in UL for the first time, did you pick up the collegiate running again, or did you kind of give it a miss?
See, I was commuting from home. Like, UL is only an hour away from me, so I just joined back with the secondary school group in Flannan's.
Oh, yeah.
where I had been in school. So I'd go to college and come back and run with the group. But yeah, so there wasn't, like, it was funny going for DCU too well. There was no collegiate scene in UL. Like the running coach was there as a bit of a joke.
Really?
I mean, DCU athletics is obviously like a powerhouse, and they'll do anything for you. Like if you go to the director of athletics with a problem, he'll try and help you out or whatever. And there was a real bubble, and then UL there was just nobody, and that's changed a lot now. A few of the other lads that came into UL at the same time as me into first year, we got a new coach in, Rory Chester, my own teammate in Ennis here, so he's the head coach. And last year we won. We were so we've changed it. We're building a bit of a culture now again in UL, which is good.
Yeah,
But it was non-existent when I first arrived.
Yeah, that is always good, and as you mentioned there, it's good to have that bit of routine. So obviously, when you came back, you found it easier to get into the routine to go to college, come back and train. So that's always good. And at the moment, before we kind of move away from the running stuff a little bit, at the moment, what's your running like? I know you might be a little busy at the moment or whatnot, but are you still keeping it up? What kind of level are you running at?
Yeah, no, I'm still training. Training quite hard at the moment. Actually, of all them young lads in Ennis, the two Casey twins and Mark Hanner, and they're beating me around the place. And obviously, like I went like very hard at it in like September because I thought the novice was going to be on again this year. Obviously, we lost last year, so this was like the redemption tour, and it was meant to be on yesterday. Obviously, not happening. So
yeah,
but I kept it up. I think I was talking to someone today about this, that I think for everyone, like, you had to find out why you do running again. Like, you had to come back to your main reason for it, because there's no races. So like, if you're solely doing it for competition, then what's the point? But you had to come back to that reason of, you do this because it's something you enjoy. And for me now, all college is online. Going in to meet the lads for a run is a social aspect of my day more than anything, and getting fit then is just a byproduct of that. But it's just a social thing, and it gives me a good routine. But yeah, still quite fit and still running away. So but again, it's just I've no real intentions of, I don't know, making championships or anything. It's just hopefully getting All Ireland soon, maybe.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth too, and I was about to ask what are maybe the goals or was for the future. So you're gonna basically just keep training, and whatever happens, happens. And I know during these times it's unpredictable to train for specific races. You know, they could be cancelled today, the week, the month before. So it's pretty much just train now, and whatever comes your way, you just take it.
Yeah, I think it's just more routine. Obviously, we've a very good group, so we always like have small targets within the group, and obviously you just take it day by day. So obviously there's going to be a session Saturday or whatever, or the following on Wednesday, and you kind of just want to be ready for that session. So yeah, I suppose the key now is just, for everyone, is just not to think too far ahead, because you just kill yourself with anxiety. So just take it day by day, and yeah, just keep enjoying it and getting out of the house, because it's pretty bleak if you didn't have running in your life now, to be stuck inside all day.
Yeah, definitely. And the same with a lot of people who've never run or haven't run in about 10, 20 years are even getting out the door to run. So it's the kind of in sport at the moment, which is always good to see. But moving away slightly from the running side of things, a few days ago there I put up on my Instagram about who people wanted to see on the podcast, and then a few people actually said, oh, more than a runner. They want to see maybe Liam on the podcast, or they wanted to see a bit of a collaboration. So I was like, that's a pretty good idea. So here we are, and it seemed a lot of people knew you obviously from your podcast, More Than a Runner. So basically, just want to give us a bit of an overview of when that started and how you got the idea.
Okay, so I was thinking about this today. So in college, we had to do a work placement from January, which was meant to run till September, and so I was doing my work placement away, and then obviously COVID hit, and so work placement finished up 1st of May. So then I had 4 months to do nothing really, and I'd never had a summer off before. So I was like, what am I going to do? So I said I'd try and build some practical skills. So I downloaded like all the Adobe software, and I said I'd learn how to do like graphic design and maybe audio editing and video editing or whatever, and write blogs and stuff. And then from there, then I started just chatting with my friends, making it into like a mock radio show more than anything. And I said I wouldn't post it, and then I said, I will post it on SoundCloud. So I think I did like 6 of them or something, and then I was enjoying it. So I said, well, if you want to keep this going, you have to make it more of a niche market. I mean, you can't just be chatting to your mates with music every week. No one's going to listen to that.
Yeah.
And so I thought the running community was a good place to start, because I think there was I wasn't hearing personal interviews with athletes, and I think that's something that was missing. So I said, why not do that? And a few of the guests that were in the music thing were athletes well, and we chatted for an hour about music and didn't talk about running once. So that's where the name More Than a Runner, I suppose, comes from. More Than a Runner, as well as like, you only hear from these athletes after a race for like a 5-minute clip, and all they're talking about is their race and their training. But when you listen to like an hour-long interview with them, you actually come away saying you've learned so much more about the athlete. And then when it comes to the next race, you're invested in that athlete because you know so much more about them, and you're cheering them on. And that's how you grow the sport. So there should be 20 Irish Legs podcasts instead of 3. Because the more people hear these stories and hear the backgrounds of the athletes, the more invested they are, and that's how you grow any sport. It's just telling them stories and getting people invested in them. So yeah, long story short, that's how the podcast came about.
Yeah, definitely. And no, as you said, especially in running, lately, as I mentioned, it's starting to get a little bit more recollection, especially after, Eliud Kipchoge with the 2-hour marathon. Some people, some of my mates even were talking about that and being like, oh yeah, that's really good. So it is starting to get a bit more recollection in Ireland anyway. So, but definitely I feel like there needs to be more emphasis on it through, if that's a YouTube channel or even a podcast like this. So yeah, obviously when you start posting it is quite hard maybe to even start to get guests on or have the podcast even interesting, because if you're only a small podcast, not a lot of people want to come onto it because you're not telling your story to a big audience. So when did you see it kind of start to get a little bit bigger and people were actually excited to come onto the podcast?
Yeah, I suppose I was lucky in that either from going to DCU or going on warm weather training camps or whatever. Like I knew a lot of our best athletes, and so they were willing to come on. Like I think so. Gary Campbell was my first guest. He was a good friend of mine, and Brian Fay was the 3rd guest on. Yeah. He's a good friend of mine as well. And Kieran Linnard actually was 2nd guest. And in fair play to Kieran, because he didn't have to do that because I had nobody listening at the time.
Yeah.
But I just took a shot and asked him, and he said sure he'd do it, and that was a big help because he posted on his social media, and that's still the most listened to episode. So as I was saying, I felt like a bit of imposter syndrome for a while, because you were kind of thinking when you're messaging athletes that they were mutual friends or whatever, and they were just doing you a favour by coming on.
Yeah.
And I suppose then it really hit when like I messaged Sonia and she said she'd come on. And I mean, Sonia Sullivan is probably Ireland's greatest ever sports person.
Yeah.
She could do any interview she likes. So for her to say, yeah, I'll give up an hour of my time to come on your podcast is, it was at that moment where you're like, okay, this is, it gave it a bit of credibility. And I suppose just myself personally as well, it's kind of like, this is something that's it's good and what people like and stuff,
Yeah, no, definitely. And speaking about the Sonia Sullivan podcast, yesterday on my 75-minute run, I actually gave it a listen, and it was a really, really great episode. I'll leave all the links down in the description, but I suppose everyone that's probably listened to this has come across your podcast at some stage. But that's what I feel personally as well. When you get a good guest on, it's always great to hear about the running and their story and their life and everything. But you just know in the back of your mind that when they share it around, it's going to give your podcast a bit more attention, and then some guests lead to other guests and so on. Like when I had Brian Fay on, that came from Sean Tobin being on the podcast. So it is always good, Yeah, it is good to hear people's stories and athlete stories, but it is good. That gives you a bit more attention then as well. And was there ever a point when you started up the podcast? Some of these questions now might be a little bit selfish, kind of just asking you a few questions that I kind of want to know about. But when you started off the podcast and maybe some episodes weren't doing as good as others, were you kind of getting a bit disheartened, or were you just kind of doing it because you enjoyed making them?
No, I think I just enjoyed it, and I think what I've learned from running is that you should never equate your self-confidence to how many listens you get, how many likes you get, what time you run.
Yeah.
I think, because some guests, like some of the most interesting conversations that I've done on the podcast are the least listened to, because maybe they just don't have that much of a name. Like, I think my favourite one has been John Cullen, he's not really a professional runner or an athlete per se. He just wrote a book about running because he just loves running. And it was just really well written. He's just a really interesting guy. And so that's been my favourite episode. I think it's like one of the least listened to episodes. So no, that doesn't dishearten me, because I know that, okay, if this gets 1,000 listens, I'm still not going to make money off this. This isn't, it's not something that I'm going to be doing long term. So it doesn't matter how many people listen to it. I enjoy it. I put it out there. If you like it, listen to it, great. If you don't, well, that's fine. Go and listen to another podcast,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like that thing where on social media you can get caught up in that rabbit hole of chasing likes, chasing listens. And that's always a slippery slope, because just because one episode has less listens, you shouldn't be beating yourself up about that.
Yeah, no, definitely. And what I was about to say, like, doing a podcast and having a small podcast, it's not even selfish per se, but it gives you that, kind of a reason or an excuse to get in touch with these people that you have an interest in and you want to find out their story, and you can kind of then use your podcast to talk to them.
It's funny you said that. Someone texted me the other day and they said, "Oh, you're really getting your foot in places." And I said, having a podcast is the best excuse ever to build a really good network.
Yeah, definitely.
You just reach out to these top people and you say, "Do you want to come on my podcast?" And they say, "Yeah, great." And then you stay in contact with them. And now all of a sudden I have this really good network of people, like in high places, just because I started doing this thing that really isn't that difficult.
Definitely.
But it's just, it's a great networking tool. That's what I've learned in recent times.
It's literally, you just click record and you start having a conversation, and then you have these big names. If you ever need someone to help support the podcast or even come on for a second episode, you can always then just reach out to them again, and it would be no problem. So I wouldn't even say it's selfish. It's more tactical to get in with some of the big dogs in whatever genre you do a podcast in. And
but I think if you have the confidence to put yourself out there as well, you should be chatting with these people, because it's not easy to put yourself out there.
Definitely.
Like, that was definitely a big leap for me. Was I wouldn't be the most confident. I'm quite self-conscious, quite introverted, so it's surprising that I have a podcast at all. But definitely a big leap to put yourself out there, and that's why people don't do it, because they're afraid to put themselves out there for people to listen to.
Yeah, definitely. And like, once you start getting into the flow of the conversation, especially if it's a topic that the both of the guest and the interviewer have an interest in, like running per se, it's really easy just to let the conversation flow.
Mm-hmm.
And you were saying there that obviously you're doing it because you're not making money off it. You just want to be, you find these conversations interesting, and you like talking to these different people. So in terms of that, where do you see, or where do you want the podcast to go in the next, I don't know, month or two, or even the next year or so?
I was going to ask you that question, but
I got there first.
Because I don't see myself doing it very much longer, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I'm doing another episode next week, and then we're doing a Christmas special, which should be good crack. And then I'm just going to take a break. I might leave it there. I might pick it back up in the new year if I miss it. But I just think with these things, it's just hard to see how you can keep it going, because I don't know. I think about that a lot, but I think the week on week is a bit. It's tough to keep that scheduled, so maybe I just need a break from it for a while. But I was going to ask you that, like, where do you see this? Where do you see your one going? Because you're trying to build more of like a brand.
Yeah, that would be it in a sense, especially, maybe being a little bit younger and coming across on every single platform. So you have Spotify, Anchor, TikTok, YouTube, every kind of platform. I kind of want to just spread, not even the podcast, just like my interest for running across every platform I can, and I want to keep it going for as long as I can, and grow it as big as I can, and then maybe in the future, the podcast might become less of what I'm doing, and maybe YouTube videos might be, running YouTube videos might be more the thing I'm doing. But as of right now, it's the podcast that I'm doing more. So yeah, no, I definitely want to keep content creating up for a good bit longer anyway, to see where it's going, because I only started this over quarantine, and I'm already like near 200 subscribers on YouTube, like over 6,000 plays and watches and everything. So it's not like I'm doing these episodes and no one's tuning in. So I'm seeing progress, so I don't see a reason to stop.
Yeah, I always think, I said this when I started it, because there was another podcast out there that I wasn't liking, and I said I could just do it better. And someone said, "Well, why don't you just do it better?" And I said, "I will." So, and then,
Yeah.
but I think in the content creation thing, it's just sticking around and being consistent with it.
Yeah,
And because then, if you're consistent with it, it'll build into people's daily routines.
definitely. Yeah.
It's like every Tuesday I listen to this, every Wednesday I listen to this. So as long as you're consistent and you stay around long enough, you will get more listeners, and you will get more viewers and subscribers and all that crack.
No.
But
Yeah.
no, for me, this is just purely like a project for like the CV to have. And I think I've, out of 20 episodes done at Christmas, I think I've had a lot of good guests on. I think it's been substantial enough to leave it. But I think I have a feeling I might miss it, and I might just come back to it
Yeah,
in
definitely.
January.
No, because it does allow you to have really, really amazing conversations. But no, content creation, as you said there, it's a hard thing to keep up, and but the thing with the podcast is, it's like you can be just doing the dinner, eating your dinner, out on a run or whatever, and you could just have it on in the background, and it's not like a YouTube video where you need to be understanding what's going on to actually enjoy the video. If you have your earphones in, like as I was saying yesterday, I was listening to your podcast with Sonia O'Sullivan. I was just out running, and that's then another listen for you. It just takes no effort to even record the podcast, because it's just a normal conversation, and then B, takes no effort just to throw a pair of earphones in and listen to it. So that's why I think for now I'm going to keep up primarily the podcast, but then in the future, if because I do feel like when I put out different kind of videos on YouTube, like vlogs or challenges, they do tend to do maybe a little bit better, maybe just because they're one-off kind of things. But if I tend to feel like they're doing pretty good, I might start doing them, a bit more frequently. So yeah, it would be. I'd say you would miss it a little bit, because it comes. I feel like it comes into my routine during the week anyway. Actually recording the podcast, and then if you're just sitting around doing nothing, I suppose, and you always have something to fall back onto.
Yeah, and would you like to do this after school then and stuff?
Um,
Content creation.
well, after school, I was thinking,
Because this is the course I did DCU, Communication Studies, which
yeah,
ironically I dropped out of, and now I've come back around 4 years later and done
yeah.
in a different way. But so that'd be a good one for your Communication Studies in DCU. You do all this editing kind of stuff.
No, it would. I'm as you know, big into sports, so I was thinking, PE and biology teaching in DCU, and kind of having this on the side, and then seeing where it takes me. If I can, hopefully one day leave that normal job full time, and then end up doing some sort of content creation, or full time professional running or whatever like that. But if it comes around, obviously close to the time to leave insert, when I figure out my points and everything, if I get the points to do it, and I've a much bigger interest in editing and everything, when that time comes around, I'd have absolutely no problem doing it. So yeah, it's definitely something I would be interested in. And my teachers always say to my mum in the parent teacher meetings, "Oh, I'm well able to talk," whether that's a good thing or not. it is always something that I'll have. So yeah, when the time comes around, hopefully, maybe I'll have more of an interest in that course.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah. So we'll have to wait and see for both of us where the podcast goes. But kind of coming into the last few things here over on my Instagram, I put up any questions anybody had for you. And I picked out my favorite three. And the first one here is now a person, I don't know if this has any significance to you, but it says, who has better hair, Dean or Dylan?
Ah, Dylan all day.
Personally, when I saw that question, I thought I was getting, mugged off a little bit, kind of trying to get me to ask a stupid question and you not having a clue. So do you want to give us a little bit of background about that then?
So Dylan and Dean are the two Casey twins, which are I'm sure you've seen them in like
Yeah,
cross country races and stuff. Yeah, but they're yeah. I see what the Max Life boys are doing on YouTube, and I really want to do an NS Track vlog because they're content gold.
yeah.
The two Casey twins, they're enigmas. But Dylan has they used to have huge afros,
Yeah.
and Dean has cut his now and it's short hair, but Dylan still has the afro rocking. So yeah, Dylan better hair for sure. And I know the question there. I know who asked the question.
Is Scott, was it? It was.
Oh no, it wasn't. So I thought it'd be Mark Hanron. Okay,
Oh
that's
no,
Scott.
it was Scott. But I don't know. Hopefully that doesn't cause any tension next time we go up to the club.
No, I don't think they have internet. They probably won't hear this or listen to this.
Very good. Then they don't hear this. Coming more into the running side of things again. Any regrets in sense of running? Maybe starting it a bit earlier, or any regrets in general, or do you think you kind of fulfilled everything that you wanted and you never had huge ambitions, or do you have some regrets?
Uh, No, no. The only bad period in time in running was that first year in DCU.
Yeah,
Um, that was tough. I don't know if that's a regret though. I mean, you can never have regrets because if that had happened differently, then I wouldn't be sitting here right now. Something else would have happened.
yeah,
But like, yeah, look, as going back to what I said at the start, like I joined the sport to stay fit, and all of a sudden I got farther into sports than I ever thought I would, and so yeah, I don't really have any regrets. I still enjoy it. I'm still able to run away, which is something you should always be grateful for. So
yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
no regrets really.
That's always a good thing. And the last question that I picked out from the bunch, and I feel like from this episode, it kind of has a bit of a significance, especially when it comes to terms of running in DCU, and when you're maybe a bit of a low running wise. Then or not even when you're in DCU, over your entire running career, when you had maybe a bit of a low, a bad session, a bad race, or things just weren't going well running wise, what did you do kind of to get over it, or to take your mind off it?
I think I just learned to stop getting so down about it, which is it takes a lot of work. I mean, you have to just kind of realize that look, like running, like unless we're going to the Olympics, like you shouldn't be beating yourself up over a bad session or a bad race.
Yeah.
And funnily, like usually when you have a bad session, you end up coming out the next week having a great session.
Mm.
And really, when you think long term, you can get caught up in these small little dips, but like in the long run of things, they're completely insignificant. And so yeah, if I have a bad session now or a bad race now, I just say, well, it is what it is, whatever.
Yeah.
But that just comes back to like that's why the podcast is called More Than Runner. It's this whole concept of tying your identity to your sport.
Yeah.
And if you're like Killian the runner, Liam the runner, well then if you have a bad session, you're like, well, who am I? Like,
Yeah,
if
exactly.
I'm not good at running, then what's the point of anything?
Yeah, definitely.
And that's a really dangerous place to be mentally. So that's what I suppose the podcast. That's the essence of what it's trying to do, is to get that message across of yes, running is something you're good at, but it's not who you are at the end of the day, and a bad session shouldn't knock you too far.
Not 100%. And then if you let running become who you are, and you'll bring that that bad feeling, that bad vibe around with you every day from a bad session or a bad race, you'll end up becoming a bit of a negative person, and maybe not even the nicest person. So it's always good to have, Liam the runner, but then also just Liam, and then also just Killian as well. So to have maybe a shift in mindset depending on the circumstance. So yeah, that's good to know, because especially if because around my school and within my friend group, I'm kind of like, oh yeah, Killian, he does running, and then but I don't feel like people are like expecting, if I have a bad session or a bad race, to be negative then the next time they see me. So that's always a good thing,
Yeah, it's something to bear in mind that nobody cares.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Nobody cares. They'll say, "How'd you get on? Grand, well done, fair play." That's all they'll say, and they don't really care. So, that's something to keep in mind, definitely.
And I was saying that.
And if someone judges you for having a bad race or a bad run, then you probably shouldn't be friends with them.
No, probably not. Yeah, definitely not. And I was saying, like I said in previous episodes of the podcast, the same with a podcast, or any sort of content creation. You were saying there that you were a bit skeptical at first to actually share your podcast and your conversations around. But at the end of the day, what I said again is that, like, nobody actually does care. So, like, if someone comes up and like, oh yes, or your podcast, oh, More Than a Runner, oh, Little Running Irishman, and then they go off 5 minutes later with their friends and they've completely forgot about it, because they really actually don't care, and nobody really does care. So yeah, you just need to, especially with the podcast and running as well, you just need to have those as separate things, and then you as basically a person as another separate thing.
Yeah, well, it is a tough leap to make, because we're all self-conscious. We all do care what people think.
Yeah, 100%.
People who say I don't care what people think about me, well, they're lying, because everyone does care what people think about you to some degree. It's to limit that degree to as much as you can. But then, like, no one's going to send you a text saying your podcast is shit. I don't listen to you. What are you doing? Who do you think you are?
Yeah.
Like, anyone that messages you is a positive message. And what really keeps me going is the random messages that I get of people I haven't heard from in a couple of years, and they text me saying, "Oh, great podcast, keep up the good work."
Yeah.
And that's great. So yeah, people want to see you do well, and as long as you're not, I suppose, putting on a fake persona or trying to live up to a stereotype, as long as you just be yourself and be normal like you are in real life, then you're okay.
Yeah, 100%. And I was kind of in your boat an issue with the podcast to begin with. I was I had the podcast. I'd put a few episodes out, and I was getting like 2 listens because I was too afraid to share it around. And then as soon as I shared it, it was going up drastically. So yeah, you're gonna be that big skeptical at the start, but then I feel like once you start sharing it around, people just kind of lose interest. Then So yeah, no, this was, as I usually say, a pretty fast 45 to 50 minutes, because it's always cool when you have a good conversation and it flows nicely and you've things to talk about. So I appreciate you coming on to the podcast, Liam, sharing your running story and obviously your podcast story, and hopefully we can see more Than a Runner podcasts in the future.
Yeah, Christmas special is going to be very good.
I'll have all the links down in the description and the show notes.
That should be out December 21st. We're going back to the OG guests.
Really?
From the first music. I started off as a music podcast, so we're having all the original music guests back on. We're going to have a few beers and listen to our Spotify rap songs of the year.
So that'll be good crack.
So, absolute zero running talk. So if anyone's looking for running talk, they can go to Little Running Irish Running Man.
Definitely. No, that sounds like good crack. I'll make sure to tune into that. But for anyone listening or watching at home, I appreciate everyone tuning in. And as I said, I appreciate you, Liam, taking the time out to come on the podcast. Hope everyone that watched or listened enjoyed, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.
Nice one.
There we go.